I don't want it to be the absolute last word. And what the trendy style is, one of the things I can't do with Parkinson's disease, can repetitive action. So clapping, it's really hard. I go clap. After decades of silence, Linda Ronstadt is finally speaking out, and it's exactly what fans have whispered about for years, from secret romances to life-changing decisions. The truth behind her solitude is more surprising than anyone imagined. What did she just admit that confirms what we all suspected? Stay tuned. When Linda Ronstadt sang Different Drum, it wasn't just a song, it was a message, a bold statement wrapped in melody. At a time when female artists were expected to blend in, Linda stood out. Her voice wasn't soft or shy. It was fearless, raw, and unforgettable. She wasn't following the formula. She was rewriting it, born into a family where music flowed like blood. Linda absorbed rich harmonies from both American and Mexican traditions. Her childhood in Tucson, Arizona shaped her artistic soul. But it wasn't until she stepped onto the Los Angeles music scene that the world really started to listen. Linda didn't ease into fame. She stormed into it, music and dancing to professionals, and it's a shame we should all be doing our own singing, our own dancing. You don't have. She joined the Stone Ponies, and their song Different Drum launched her into the spotlight. Suddenly, this young woman with an unmistakable voice was everywhere. But what people didn't realize back then was that behind the soaring vocals was a woman quietly defying expectations. While others chased approval, Linda pursued authenticity. Even in those early years, there were signs that she wasn't just different. She was determined to do things her way. And as her career climbed higher, her personal decisions would only deepen that mystery. By the 1970s and 80s, Linda wasn't just a star. She was a force, the queen of rock. The first lady of country rock fusion. Fans packed arenas to see her. Albums flew off the shelves. Her songs played on repeat across the globe. No, I don't think about it. I think about what's going to happen today because I don't. But behind all that noise, there was something quieter, something harder to see despite her fame. Linda kept much of her life private. Still, her relationships made headlines. She shared time with notable names like J.D. Souther, whose songwriting matched her emotional depth. Then came Jerry Brown, the governor of California, a pairing that seemed to blend politics and music in the most unexpected way. They were photographed on magazine covers. They looked like a power couple. But even then, Linda didn't seem drawn to the traditional script. People assumed marriage was next, but it never came later. Rumors swirled about a surprise romance with comedian Jim Carrey and even an engagement to George Lucas. But again, no aisle, no vows. The outside world saw a woman with every opportunity for the perfect fairy tale. I sometimes wish I could have another name. That was my own name that didn't go out to the world. But what they didn't see was her growing discomfort with the idea of settling into something that didn't feel right. Fame brought her countless faces, but not the kind of connection she truly longed for. And that quiet ache would lead her to make a decision most couldn't understand. Until now, for years, people asked why Linda never married. She had the voice, the fame, the love interests. So what was missing? In her own words, she revealed a struggle many quietly face. She spoke about meeting people who were kind but lacked the passion that fueled her soul. Then there were the ones who lit up her musical world, but their personalities made peace impossible. He's really nice, but he's not musically inspired, she once explained. Then you meet someone who's so musically inspired, it takes your breath away. But he's such a maniac. You can't get along with him. A weapon against the populace, and women in particular, and then everyone identifies with it. That push and pull wore her down. She admitted that she never had a talent for marriage. She didn't like compromise. If something didn't feel right, she didn't force it. And in the whirlwind pace of her industry, maintaining a long-term bond wasn't just hard, it was nearly impossible. She described how opportunities passed in flashes and how you barely had time to see the same person twice before something new pulled you in a different direction. Everyone she met seemed to be in competition. Musicians living in their own worlds, and for someone as grounded and honest as Linda, that world didn't offer what she needed. But the real reason she didn't need to be married to feel whole, her heart was open, her desires were real, but her standards were rooted in self-respect, not social pressure. And when nothing fit, she simply chose a different path, not out of fear, but out of clarity. I feel like my own Victorian grandmother. And I did have a Victorian grandmother, but hookups, come on. Linda never really belonged in Los Angeles. She lived the life of an artist in the spotlight. But the more time she spent there, the more disconnected she felt. The city's obsession with image and status never matched her values, so she left. San Francisco became her next chapter. It offered more space, more heart, but even that didn't last forever. Eventually, she returned to Tucson, the place where it all began. There, she built the life she wanted, away from cameras, away from pressure, a life centered on love, but not in the traditional sense. She adopted two children. Mary Clementine and Carlos. Becoming a mother wasn't just a decision. It was a calling. She poured into them the same passion she once gave the stage, while others searched for belonging in relationships. Linda found it in quiet moments, raising her children and living simply. She created her own rhythm, balancing between San Francisco and Tucson, never tied down but never adrift. Why they're important, why they should never be rendered invisible, or without their dignity. Her story wasn't about rejection, it was about choosing what fit and when it didn't. She moved on in 2013. Linda faced something that shook her to the core. Parkinson's disease. For someone whose identity was so deeply tied to her voice, the diagnosis wasn't just medical, it was personal. The disease began to affect her vocal cords, robbing her of the very thing that had defined her for decades. She couldn't sing anymore, not in the way the world knew her, not in the way that filled stadiums or stopped hearts, but she didn't crumble. Instead, she got honest. She opened up in interviews, speaking with a mix of humor and grace. When asked if she missed singing, she said, "I can sing in my brain." She described how melodies still play in her head. Sometimes, ones she chooses, sometimes ones that randomly show up. She joked about bad Christmas songs looping endlessly. Even as her voice faded, her spirit stayed sharp. So much traveling when I was working. But there are all those places that I thought, when I'm not working. She remained curious, creative, and deeply connected to music. She didn't stop loving it. She just found new ways to hold on to it. It was a reminder Linda was never just a voice. She was a soul, a storyteller, a survivor. The world may have lost her live performances, but what they gained was something more powerful. Her truth. Over time, the questions never stopped. People still wondered, why didn't she ever settle down? In a candid interview with the Washington Post, Linda finally gave her answer. She said simply, "I didn't need to get married," and that was it. She wasn't against love. She wasn't cold. She just didn't see marriage as something she needed to feel fulfilled. She spoke honestly about needing things to go her way, and about how she never liked compromising who she was to fit someone else's vision of a perfect life. Well, the great thing about having a hit is that means people like you. But the bad thing about is that means you have to sing that song. And she didn't feel pressure to explain herself, because for her, it was never about doing what others expected. It was about honoring what felt right. Her life was rich with music, motherhood, movement, and meaning. That was enough. Linda's confession didn't come with drama or scandal. It came with calm certainty, a quiet, powerful truth that echoed louder than any headline for years. Fans had their suspicions. There was always something different about Linda Ronstadt, something that set her apart beyond her voice and fame. She didn't seem to chase what others in the spotlight craved. No flashy headlines about weddings or fairy tale endings, no need to prove anything to anyone. People quietly wondered, was it by choice? Was there a deeper reason? Now we know. Yes, it was by choice. American Popular Songs is the American Standard Song. Um, you know, and not just any choice, but one rooted in clarity, honesty, and strength. When Linda finally opened up, it didn't come with shock or drama, it came with peace. She didn't need a traditional love story to feel complete. She wasn't running from anything. She was running toward herself. The idea of settling down for Linda wasn't about timelines or social checklists. It was about alignment, finding someone whose soul matched hers, whose values mirrored her own. And when that didn't happen, she didn't force it. She embraced her freedom, her music, her children, and her own rhythm. What many fans quietly suspected for years is now beautifully confirmed. Linda Ronstadt always lived on her own terms, and that in itself is one of the boldest, most inspiring stories in music history. Linda Ronstadt's story isn't just about music. It's about choices. She showed us that success doesn't have to look like anyone else's, that it's okay to walk away from what doesn't feel right, and that real happiness is built on knowing who you are and staying true to it. So here's a question for you. Have you ever chosen something unexpected, even when others didn't understand? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. And if you're inspired by people who live boldly and love deeply, check out our next video about another legend who defied the odds and made their own rules. Linda Ronstadt didn't just sing hits. She lived a life that struck a chord. And that's a story worth listening to.